A lot of people are reluctant also just because they think that sue people are bad or wrong, and people that claim personal injuries are out to just make money off of other people. There's another side. It doesn't have to be that way. There's also a side, especially when there's a company involved. A company needs to be held responsible. A lot of people don't always agree with this analogy, but I think if you have children, are you going to be a permissive parent that allows your child to do wrong without correcting them? Why do you correct your children? Not only to train them and teach them, but also for safety, to keep them safe. That's your job. That's what a company's job is. A company's job is to train their people and to keep a safe work environment and a safe place for other people.
Just ask you questions that I feel like a lot of people would like to ask a lawyer.
Great.
That, we're probably sometimes too afraid to ask, or we don't know if it'll sound dumb. So like, I'll sound dumb and ask the questions. All right.
There's
cool.
No dumb question
right.
for a lawyer.
There you go. All right. So the first one I'll start with is there any sort of like Hollywood moment that's happened in a movie that you wish could happen in real life, but it would never happen?
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, there you go. A Few Good Men, right? So like those does that not happen very often where there's like a signature line? I mean, like the OJ one, if if the glove fits, you must quit, whatever it is, or doesn't fit. That doesn't happen very often, right?
Well, you would be surprised. There are always takeaways from trials. Like I was at a trial recently, and the attorneys got a tape measure, and they were, stringing this tape measure all the way across the courtroom and saying, was it this far? Was it that far?
All dramatic.
Yeah, all dramatic. And hey, stand over there. And that's not too far, and so there definitely are moments where that was a memorable moment, which I think would have played great in Hollywood.
Right.
Yes.
But they don't happen super often, right?
Usually it's pretty dry. And so I think if you're asking about trial specifically, then...
like with the judge and the jury and the audience, and it's
what you're trying to do, the best attorneys have charisma, and they are keeping the jury engaged. And in fact, in that trial, for example, the defense was such a snoozer. Every time they got up, I was like trying to stay awake myself. Like the voice was monotone. It was dry. There was no,
like showmanship?
No showmanship, no body language.
Yeah.
And then when you compared it with the plaintiff attorney, who is one of, he would say he's the best trucking lawyer in the United States right now. He's tried so many cases, has great, and it's true. He's a trial lawyer with great verdicts. And you compare the two, he was demonstrative. He was emotional. Wow. He would look at the jury. He would have, body language and facial expressions.
Like the J.D. Vance in the debate, remember like when he looked at the camera to us, the audience, you remember that really famous thing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he would look at us and be like, I don't know if she's right. Like that kind of thing, playing to the jury.
And then and the judge actually was pretty hard on him. And
being too showy?
No, just for asking the same question over again, which he's known to do, because it's kind of like it's called the reptilian method, and you're asking the same. In that case, it was he's gonna laugh if he sees this, but I saw the fog line. It was all about the fog line, and he kept saying, "So did you see the fog line? Did you pass the fog line? Did you look when you saw the fog line? Did you go left on that fog?" Like all you hear is the word fog line, and so
the person on the stand, do they just like tense up, or do they say something that they don't mean to say?
They keep thinking they're answering the same question. Yeah. So the judge kept saying, like, you've already been over this, keep going. But it definitely gets through to the jury that there's an issue with the fog line, right? And so, and it keeps the jury awake to say like, okay, so what's happening, Yeah.
So it can get theatrical, it can get pretty like Hollywood style. But I think a big takeaway here is it seems like a good trial attorney, a good lawyer works on keeping the jurors engaged, right?
Keeping them engaged, I think, is very significant, especially at the right moments, because that's a long time to be just sitting there listening. They don't have their phones. They're not eating. They're not drinking.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything. They are literally, and we're not used to that anymore. And, I think about it. If I just sit and listen, if my husband tries to listen to me without any distraction, I mean, try to do that with your spouse.
It's impossible.
Just 15 minutes,
right,
okay? Just try 30 minutes, right? Or even your
and
child.
we're both like, put your phone away. What's wrong with you?
Right. You're like, wait, hold on. I can do this. Wait, you can't fold laundry while you're in the jury box. Like, so they're just sitting there and they have probably all, their to-do list running through their head or other things going on in their mind, but you're trying to keep them focused on the trial. But let them sleep when the expert that the defense has is, boring as heck and, they're not paying attention. Yep. You don't need to make a big to-do about that. Yeah. Make a to-do when it matters. I think, and I would say that attorney, I saw him speak in Chicago and he was educating a bunch of attorneys about trial. And his whole point was juries want a show. They do want a show. And so he tries to give them a show. And so that is part of his part of his trial strategy. Not everybody does that, but I do think there's something to that.
Yeah. Funny you brought that up because, back in my theater days, I've played lawyers on stage and, learning my lines and all that kind of stuff. And is there a sense of showmanship, like we said earlier, or a sense of like, I'm going to put it on a performance. I got to get ready for it the way an actor does for a play when it comes to being on trial?
Do you rehearse?
Yeah, like do you rehearse? Do you write your things? Like if they say this, I'm going to say this. And if they make that face, like I'll react this way. Like do you prepare like a performance?
I would say the best lawyers practice. They practice in the mirror.
Yeah.
They'll film themselves and then watch it.
Really?
And they are actually working on like acting. You call it blocking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to stand here when I say this. And then when I say this line, I'm going to move this way. And I'm going to look over there.
I'll give you an example. Yeah. I saw a trial recently in Dallas, and the attorney that tried the case has tried thousands of cases. And when he was doing his jury selection, it was very apparent that he would be on one side there were two panels, right? So there were prospective juries on one side of the courtroom and then on the other. And he would approach one side, ask the question, and one juror would respond. And as he's listening, he would start moving over to the other side as they're speaking, and then he'd be ready to turn and then ask that panel the same question. And then he'd wait till they responded, and then as they're talking, he would have his... So it was like he definitely was doing some type of blocking.
It was like choreographed.
And it was choreographed, and it was very smooth, and it was very subtle, but it was obvious only when the other attorney came up, the defense attorney.
Yeah.
And he would just stand there, and it looked very clumsy compared. So he would stand there, he'd hear an answer and shake his head and be like, okay, and then go to the other side. And it didn't have the same natural effect. It definitely looked...
and to a jury, does that make an effect on the case where they're like, man, that lawyer he presented, this and that, the other guy, I don't know if I trust him too much.
I think what it is you just feel a familiarity and more of a comfortable feeling. It makes you feel better when you see someone presenting better. It's not that he was just, you don't have to have the best language, the best vocabulary, but it's how you're connecting.
Yeah. It's like what they see as much as what they hear.
Right.
Then.
So I do think you absolutely, and a lot of great trial lawyers take acting classes.
Yeah, for sure.
They have been actors, and they definitely
a lot of people
practice.
in my theater department became lawyers, and they're really good. From what I've heard and what I've seen, like they become attorneys and they're great.
Well, and you're writing a script. What are you writing? And storytelling. You're telling a story. And so they say the best trial lawyers or even the best lawyers are the ones that can tell a story well. And so you think of the components of, storytelling. And then you also...
setting up the scene and like the problem, what they were going, just thinking
the characters,
through it.
The character development, the witnesses.
That's awesome.
What's the theme?
Yeah.
What's the take? And then you want to keep it simple, so that they know exactly, what the issue is and what the problem is and what the solution should be. And then I also think attorneys practice their voice. So you want to know, do you speak loudly? Do you speak softly? Do you yell? And all of those things matter in the courtroom. And so I would absolutely, the best lawyers do practice, just like acting.
I'm going to change gears now to this next question, and it's going to kind of be a little, somber, but I'm curious what you have to say about it. I know you're in personal injury and you take on a lot of different cases with like trucks, 18-wheelers, motorcycles, work, all these different accidents. Are there cases that you feel like you would never take, whether it's like because of the emotional toll it would have on you, or the subject matter is just like, I don't want to surround myself with that, or, you know, that's not really, or even something as practical as like, that's just not really what I do? When it comes to anything related to personal injuries, is there anything that comes up in your mind?
Well, I can think of things that are not personal injury related. Like I'm not going to do anything criminal.
Right.
I'm not going to do anything.
You don't do family law. You don't do like divorces.
Will
and
not
stuff
do
like that.
family law, even as a favor. Like the answer is going to be no.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Cool. Yeah.
So, and then sometimes people will ask to do contract law. Like in Texas, there's deceptive trade practice, or lemon law with, you know, cars.
Yeah.
And the answer, sometimes I would say yes, but now I really don't, because I'm not set up for it. And those little favors end up taking so much more time.
Yeah.
And so I'd say no to those things. But anything in personal injury that's beyond what I'm comfortable, I would say if you have a frequent flyer client, not a client that's just unlucky, that's like, okay, I got in a car wreck, then I had a slip and fall, then I happened to get in another car wreck.
Then I slipped again.
But if you have someone who's had, you know, 4 different car wrecks, 3 different slip and falls, I mean, and they're just almost like a career plaintiff.
Like a accident-prone career. Yeah, like a career accidentalist or something, right?
There gets a point to where it's beyond coincidence.
Yeah.
You know, and so
Have you seen that?
I have seen that, and I would stay clear from that.
Yeah.
But other than that, pretty much anything related to personal injury we would handle.
So no lemon law, no divorces basically, and no small favors.
Right.
Because I think, and that's the business owner hat too, probably, where it's like that's just going to take up way too much time, and you're not interested in doing that.
Right.
There's a story that you told me the other one of the first times I met you, where you talked about your sister's, you know, accident at the Neiman Marcus. And I know that's a story that you've told it and everything. And just for the sake of this conversation, what, you know, just to quickly like sum up the story, your sister had an accident in the downtown Neiman Marcus, right? And, you know, it was bad, and Neiman Marcus basically just didn't really give her that much, and your parents also didn't realize that there could have been some much more there. But what was it about that made you want to become a lawyer? So I know that's part of your one of the big reasons why you wanted to become a lawyer was because of that incident. Can you just tell me a little bit about that? Well,
okay, I don't know if that's actually what made me become a lawyer, but it made me understand why some people they have a preconceived notion that we shouldn't pursue cases, and that plaintiff attorneys don't necessarily need to be, you know, suing other companies, and why that is a flawed thinking. And in my opinion, it's propaganda that is placed by the insurance companies themselves.
Oh, wow.
Or the companies themselves, because my parents were victims of that. And first of all, they didn't even know that Neiman Marcus had insurance. And so they were under the impression if we sue Neiman's, we're suing a company that we love to shop at, that we we go to, you know. And also they didn't recognize that Neiman Marcus, they only paid for the medical bills, and it was presented to them like that was it. And they also did pay for a nurse to come help her through the healing process because she broke her femur. Wow. And I think she was only 2 years old. Or 3 years old, but they weren't educated in the realm of personal injury, why it is important to hold them responsible, and then ultimately, Neiman's just moved on. They had, you know, they glued the statue back together.
Right.
It was later on, you know, the same wobbly base. There was no warning sign still. It was just moved to a floor that's, you know, not frequented by a lot of people.
Right? Yeah.
So did they really learn a lesson? It doesn't sound like it. Right. And so that to me just made me have more passion about and be able to explain to people who are reluctant. There are many people, and I totally get it. I don't want to be, you know, the plaintiff.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to be a plaintiff. First of all, you're having to present, and especially if it goes into litigation and you're filing a lawsuit, and then even worse, if it goes to trial, it's really embarrassing for the plaintiff to have to go in front of a whole courtroom of people they don't know, and they're talking about really personal parts about them, their medical, all the different aspects of their life. They're airing it out for everyone to see. It's not a pleasant experience.
Right.
And so
you have to relive it kind of, and
you're reliving the trauma
and questioned for
Yeah. And so a lot of people are reluctant also just because they think, people that sue people are bad or wrong, and people that claim personal injuries are, out to just make money off of other people. And there's another side, and it doesn't have to be that way. There's also a side, especially when there's a company involved. A company needs to be held responsible. Just like, a lot of people don't always agree with this analogy, but I think if you have children, are you going to be a permissive parent that allows your child to do wrong without correcting them? Why do you correct your children? Not only to train them and teach them, but also for safety.
Yeah.
To keep them safe. That's your job. And that's what a company's job is. A company's job is to train their people and to keep a safe work environment and a safe place for other people.
Right.
And especially if you're talking about trucking companies, a lot of trucking companies, yes, they are for-profit companies, and there's a huge demand for drivers. And many times they do not want to hold out on shipments, and they need to get things out quickly, and they're trying to push their drivers, and they will even skip parts of the process because they need to not miss that opportunity for a profit.
It's like literally profits over people. I mean,
it is profits over people. And what you see every time there's a trucking wreck, I have yet to see a trucking accident where there is not many things that led up to the wreck. It is never just the driver was negligent for doing XYZ.
There's a whole trail of events that
they forgot to check, they didn't do the pre-trip inspection. They overloaded the truck. He had never been trained, or he got trained 5 years ago and they didn't do any training since then. He'd been written up. They didn't track him. I mean, you will always find stuff. And even people say, well, maybe that's not relevant to the case. It's always relevant because we expose it. And once we expose it and they now are on notice, they have a duty to correct it and make it better. They have their policies they can make better, their training better, and then hopefully that prevents wrecks from in the future because they're held responsible.
Wow. Dang, no, that's a lot to think about, and tying it back to your family story about it, how you're not just kind of helping you and your family get over this trauma that happened, you're also helping prevent it ever happening to other people, limiting that when you go after companies like this.
And that's what you tell a jury, like a jury, that's their courtroom. That is their courtroom, and they are making a decision that is going to impact the outcome of, yes, the plaintiff's life and their family's lives, but also the response from the company.
Right.
And the company then has to take that and say, this is what happened. We were held responsible in court by 12 people, and we never want to go through this again. So what are we going to do to make sure that doesn't happen?
All these different things, and now you've saved a lot of lives. And it's good. Wow. Just to wrap this up, to kind of stay in the personal injury realm, let's say, what's something that people get wrong about the personal injury attorneys that are out there? I think for a lot of us, it's funny because like I know a few of y'all now, and so I have a really cool like inside look at how y'all are outside of the billboards, and like the TV ads and stuff like that. You're awesome people. But what does like the general public get wrong with personal injury lawyers?
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah,
appreciate
for sure.
it.
Well, once you see it,
I will say we're not all the same. But as
you're not all like Texas Hammers and we're gonna go after you guys, and
well, everybody has a different approach, I would say. My approach, and the lawyers that I respect the most, not ambulance chasers. We are not just taking frivolous claims and trying to make cases out of nothing. I couldn't, if I'm not 100% authentic with what I'm doing, I can't feel good about what I'm doing. And I can't find purpose in that and meaning. And if I have to know in every case, there's a reason we're doing this. And so even if you have a car wreck, I know if there's a herniation that appears on an MRI, that person is going to have to deal with that for a very long time, most likely for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
And they don't always know that. So the cases are not frivolous. They're not made up. They're not, I think that's the biggest, there's a notion that people are just getting in wrecks, making up injury, and trying to make money.
Right.
But you actually can't do that because we have a burden of proof. Yeah. They don't just pay us because a client, if you get rear-ended, and you don't just get to say to Geico, for example, okay, your insured rear-ended me, I deserve money. It doesn't work that way. They don't pay you just because you were rear-ended.
Right, and because you say so.
And just because you say so. You can't just say, hey, I'm hurting. So what? They're not going to pay you. You actually have to prove. We have the burden of proof. We have to prove that we have a claim, there is an injury, and there's a reason why the claim is valued at what it's valued. So to say there's frivolous claims, not when you have a burden of proof that proves that it has to be paid upon. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the big takeaway there for PI lawyers is also that like you the good ones truly take on cases when they know that there's something here, right? That I know that's something that you've told me is that the reason why you guys pretty much bat 100% or 1,000% or whatever is because you only take on cases that you're very confident, we're going to get justice for our clients. We're going to find a proper solution. You don't just take on everything and kind of hope for the best. You have a rigorous sort of onboarding process to understand, that you'll turn cases away because there's no case there.
Well, really, you only need 3 elements to a personal injury case, 3 legs of a stool. And if you have those 3 legs, you will win. I mean, most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless there's, some circumstance you wouldn't. But, and it has to be liability. It can't be your fault. You have to have an avenue of collectability, and you have to have damages. And if you have those 3 things and you know how to prove them up, then you really shouldn't, there's no way to lose necessarily.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, that's all I got. That was awesome. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot. And I hope you do too. So there you go. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.